I guess we should start, as we do every week, with microtransactions. um,
Yes, why? What a thing to keep having to talk about.
I know, and every time man, I am just really losing out on this game here because I'm not paying attention. Um, so the situation is now that everyone has sort of weighed in about the microtransactions, now the government is starting to sort of take notice, and a state representative from Hawaii named Chris Lee had a press conference where he basically brought up Battlefront 2 specifically, just as we've been talking about, and he says, this is ridiculous and this is predatory, and man, I've got a couple of quotes from him. One is like, "This is a trap for kids." And this turns this into a Star Wars themed online casino designed to lure children into spending money. So I'm torn on this because that's somewhat true. He doesn't seem to acknowledge the fact that it's a at least a T for T game, right?
Yeah.
And then the fact that this is certainly not the first game to do this, and this is not unusual. And they really don't market for kids. I understand kids like Star Wars, but just because the movies are rated for children, like I don't think they're really trying to go, hey little Johnny, grab Daddy's wallet. Uh, so anyway, yeah, everybody on Twitter immediately went like, yeah, it's about time. The government's finally going to start getting involved and go get them and all this stuff. And a guy who I should have looked up his name. I think it might have been Alan Noon on Twitter. He's a developer for Midway. He used to be a developer for Midway back when they were doing all the cool stuff, and he does his own thing now. He shared the same story, and he just put tweet after tweet about why this is actually not the best thing. And I really agreed with him. It was like you don't want the government saying what can and can't be in your game any more than like obvious things that break federal laws and stuff like that. You don't really want the government to step in and go like, you can't offer a 99-cent download in your mobile game. I think that's a bad precedent. If I'm creating my next game for kids or adults or whoever it's for, I don't want to have to stop everything and submit it to the government and hope they get back to me in a timely fashion and they create sort of a DMV for games. I don't want any of that.
Yes.
And I understand why Twitter is super pro-government about things like this, and I'll go as far as to say kind of anti-business, but
yeah,
I think people are going to discover this is a super bad thing, and I'm very curious to get your thoughts on this.
I think that both things are kind of bad. I think that the loot boxes in some way are predatory.
I think that's fair.
It just it's affecting too much of the gameplay, and we'll come back to that in just a second. But then at the same time, the government stepping in and us feeling like that is an acceptable solution to this is not okay. Also, because I wholeheartedly agree with you, saying you don't really want the government walking in into a situation and deciding what can go into your game and what can't go into your game, especially something that's going to affect it so powerfully as its economic system.
Right.
If you threw a blanket legislation over this and said you can't have microtransactions in your games, then all of a sudden awesome free-to-play models are going to disappear overnight.
Exactly.
And you're gonna lose amazing games like Warframe, Brawlhalla. There's another free-to-play I get into. Just downloaded World of Warships. That's a free-to-play. I'm sure there's a store.
Mm-hmm.
There was another one. Smite seems to be relatively popular. I don't play that, but that's a good free-to-play game that's on there. You get the picture, and it's just kind of like, yeesh. Yeah, that kind of scares me because I like that model it's been a few weeks ago now that we talked about Brawlhalla, but I like that model for certain games, free-to-play.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that punished. And this is bordering on that when you get the government involved. But in the same time, to hit companies back a little bit with this is that we don't care about the loot boxes so much. I don't think that's what it is. I think that what we care about is that the loot boxes were so closely tied towards your progression.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. It's this sort of gets into where we have to decide what kind of intervention would we want. Where do we want it to start and where do we want it to stop? I think we're already
Yes.
dangerously close to a situation where the government could step in because of EA, and the only people it's going to hurt are basically me. I'm big in mobile games and stuff, and one of the only real business models that could bring in any serious revenue would require me to advertise or offer additional downloads, and that stuff would all be on the chopping block if the government decided, you can't offer, purchase content purchases within your game if the rating is under M or something like that.
Yes.
So these same and these are the same people who on Twitter who are like, oh yeah, thank God, go take indie or go take EA down and tell them they can't do this stuff. Like, who do you think that's going to hurt?
Yeah.
If it hurts EA, they're not going to be the first ones to feel it.